Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Carrow Road. 210 days it has taken, but Norwich City have won a game. There is a smile on my face. This is all very odd and unfamiliar territory. Norwich City have played well. They have deservedly won a game of Championship football here at Carrow Road. They've beaten QPR by 3-1, and what an afternoon it was. It was utterly brilliant, really, to head down as I have done, make my walk from the press box to the mix zone, and to walk past people embracing, walk past people with smiles on their face, to walk past people who genuinely just looked like they'd had the weight of their world off their shoulders. And I think that's the overriding emotion tonight: relief, joy, of course, as well. And I am just delighted I get to stand in front of you and talk about some good stuff and talk about some elements that we saw today that Norwich City did very well to win this game, because it was vastly improved. And it caps off a real week of progress, I think. 4 points from 6, to me, in my mind, was kind of the... Not that you can ever put arbitrary numbers on this... On weeks in the Championship, but I felt that would be a solid return. It would represent progress. I probably anticipated it maybe coming the other way around, but we'll take any way it did come. But yeah, Norwich City just completely deserved to win this game. As, to be fair, I think they deserved to win on Tuesday night. And in terms of those performances and the improvement that we've seen, it's been stark, really. They look a completely different side as they did in the first half today, where they had energy, they had intensity, they played with purpose, they had a really clear structure about them. Just things we haven't seen, haven't spoken about, haven't deduced from a Norwich City side for a significant period of time. I think Philippe Clement, his assistant Stefan van der Heyden as well, clearly deserve credit for realigning those things, for restructuring those things, for getting Norwich City not just on the same page, but getting them functional, getting players who have underperformed for a long period of time into a system that allows them to flourish, but also extracting those intangible elements, the desire, that willingness to run. All of those aspects I felt today. It's almost a simplification, it feels like to me. More balance about the team, more cohesion about the team. They press together, they sit off together. And it's just much improved. Of course, and I know this, and I'll say this from the off, look, one swallow doesn't make a summer. There's so much work to do. The gap in the Championship table is still 5 points between Norwich City and safety. And I think Philippe Clement will know more than anyone that one win does not solve all of Norwich City's issues this season. But boy, does it feel good. And is it a start? And is it key to use the word that he used, synergy, to create that? A couple of weeks ago, I was stood here after Leicester. It was a really sad afternoon. It was ultimately Liam Manning lost his job. There were protests as I recorded this video, actually, in the stand up or behind the stand I'm stood in, but also the south stand as well. The players were kind of marched around the pitch by police to their coach in the corner because they hadn't been allowed to park in the car park. It was a really sad state of affairs. And like I say, just to reiterate, one win does not solve everything. It won't change probably opinions drastically, but it feels good. And that unifying present, the fans, I thought it was it was excellent. I felt, and those scenes at the end. Clearly, Norwich fans have been waiting a long time for them. It was May. Jack Wilshere was in the dugout. Norwich have had 2 head coaches since that point. And it was just great to see people, being at Carrow Road and being happy. And I felt that was a nice place to start. Let's get into the performance then, because some really interesting stuff today tactically. I mean, I was kind of stood there first off thinking, Philippe Clement, you are a very clever man and a very capable coach. And of course, I think in football we can sometimes overstate the role that a coach plays. But as I said, I think there's just been a simplification of the structure that Norwich City are playing with. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But let's go through the game. Norwich City made 2 changes to the lineup today. Obviously, no Mirko Topic, who very sadly has done his ACL, did that on Tuesday night against Oxford. That's now been confirmed. He's going to miss the remainder of the season. So obviously wish Mirko well in what's going to be a very long recovery for him. Pelle Matson came in. We'll come back to him in a little while. And then Amanka Forson started on the right, where Jovan Makama, who was here, we have pictures of him kind of arriving with the rest of the team, but pulled out very late through illness. Was due to start on that right-hand side. Amanka Forson, in the end, did start there. Those were the only 2 changes, really, and that was interesting. I was probably anticipating a little bit more. Matthias Christgård, and I think Paddy has spoken to Philippe Clement after the game, and he's kind of indicated he feels that at this moment in time, where Norwich are at in their process and where they are at in the league table and within games, He doesn't want to sacrifice that extra midfielder for another striker and almost lose that control in the centre of the pitch. I think that's pretty savvy. I think that's a fair argument. Managing those two players is going to be really interesting, but probably what it will allow is for Norwich to, excuse me, take Sargent off, manage his minutes probably and his load in a better way if you've got Chris Goran to come off the bench with a real freshness and a different kind of striker as well, be it you chasing a game or be it you are, even if you just need some fresh energy, because I think he's capable of providing that. And it was a really opening 20 minutes. It was chaotic, it was frantic, it was end to end, it was a bit basketball matchy. Norwich had chances, QPR kind of had some chances as well, but Norwich struck first, and it was two set piece goals. The first one fell to Emi Marcondes. It was a corner that got swung in, flicked to the back post. His first shot was blocked. Maatsen then keeps it alive. And then Rory McConville, who I think is coming back from an offside position, but we won't mention that, shows great desire to get above his man and to nod it, and actually for the second time in a week, as he did against Oxford, to nod it into Emi Marcondes' path, who could slot it into the back of the net and give Norwich a lead. That would last just for 2 minutes, though, where Dembele beat his man on the right-hand side, Harry Darling, who, and it's a low cross, sorry, that I think Field gets on the end of. Darling, who was with Romain Barrel, he goes and commits and goes to press Field. That leaves Burrell open in the 6-yard box for the ball across and for the equaliser. And for me, that was a real litmus test probably of this group, because we've seen this season, we've spoke about it on these videos, they haven't been particularly great at adversity, dealing with that, processing that, shaking it off. But I felt they did. I felt they were kind of, and this is the point I talk about a lot, really, when a goal happens in a game, and I think we often understate the impact a goal can have. It's a big event. They are, especially for Norwich City this season, but in general, they are rare events, and they are bound to have impacts and swing the pendulum. And Norwich just haven't been quite good at shaking off disappointment and dealing and processing with disappointment. And I felt today we did see that. Because the Norwich team that kind of took the lead was the same Norwich team we saw at 1-1. That hasn't been the case for a lot of this season. That's really positive. And again, it was a set piece where they got 2-1 in front. A lovely in-swinging ball from Kenny McLean. I think it's one of the QPR defenders, Jimmy Dunn maybe, goes to clear the ball. It hits Mbwene and trickles over the line. That's, to be honest, the type of luck, and I think we don't often talk about luck in football, but that's the type of luck that just Norwich haven't had. And to sort of stretch it out on Tuesday night as well, that ball falling for Rory McConville to bring down for Makama in the same sense, that sense of luck, and that's a positive that some of that is returned, and we saw that with the own goal. And then the third goal is exquisite, a really, really good team move where Norwich's press, and actually I'll say that for the second goal, Norwich's press forced QPR up the pitch, and I think it was Sam Field into a rogue clearance. He then gave the ball away. Norwich then came back, and he's kind of nodded a ball out under really little pressure out for a corner that I think has led to that second goal. So again, that is evidence of the structure and the intensity and the coaching that this side now feels like it's getting. And that kind of ran through my mind really for the first half is just how well coached they look. And the third goal, as I said, was exquisite. A ball won on the right hand side here. Norwich worked the ball into Marcondes, into Sargent. Forson, who, look, I'll be honest, I didn't think it was his best afternoon, but it was an excellently well taken goal. I love the touch with the outside of the boot to create it. And because that action is so quick, because he goes outside of his boot and then curls the ball in, the goalkeeper can't set. He's got a quite a small portion of the goal to hit still, and he hit it wonderfully. And I think we've seen him outside of the box in those moments. He has that quality, he has that ability where he can find the back of the net and find an accurate shot. But for me, it is the touch that makes it outside the boot, to shift it back inside, to create the angle, then to whip it. I think that's a very high level skill outside of the box to then find the bottom corner with. And actually, I think for me, one of the big fundamentals that has changed now, you twofold really. You look at some of the relationships that are beginning to form in this Norwich group. McConville, Darling, I thought both were really good. We've spoken, and it's not just me and it's not just us. I think generally that feeling maybe that Harry Darling has regressed somewhat has been widespread and has been felt by a lot of people. And I thought today, and actually on Tuesday night alongside Rory McConville, that partnership looks like it's got something. It looks like it's got some potential. Pelle Maatsen, who I don't know what he had for breakfast this morning, but was absolutely everywhere. That's a Pelle Maatsen we have not seen this season, winning tackles and really important ones in both sides as well that allowed Norwich to transition, that allowed them to get up the pitch quickly, but also that broke up play and killed some attacking moments for QPR. So he was excellent, and in there with Kenny McLean, there were legs, there were purpose, but there was also control. And I like the way when Norwich are kind of in a settled shape, the midfielders are deeper. I think it gives you a better. They create space, they stretch midfields more, and it gives them a lot more space and time to get balls into the feet of Josh Sargent, into Emi Marcondes, into Amankwa Forson, into Oscar Schwartau, who I thought again was very good. And for me, it's those two pillars in terms of we've spoken so much about Norwich City's midfield. I think that's probably the best it's functioned this season, with obviously Emi Marcondes in front of them. And I know he has his detractors, but what he does give is intensity and energy and a willingness to press that was so important today and so important in some of those patterns that we saw. And now I want to speak about the wide areas, because I think we can basically talk about two triangles that Norwich City created on either side today that was really good. Stacey, Forson, Matson, and then Fisher, McLean, and Schwartau. I thought really effective in terms of how they use those, the positioning, the spacing. As I said, just very subtle things that have benefited this team from a cohesive perspective, that has given them, just a little bit better structure and purpose. And for me, and I put this to Emi Marcondes after the game as well, it's probably just the standards as well. And it's such a kind of easy thing to say, but it just feels like a team now that is running harder. And I felt they ran all over and ran through QPR in the first half. It's not something we've seen from a Norwich City team probably for a long period of time, let alone just this season when fitness has been a big point. I thought they had a little bit of a wobbly spell after half-time where QPR made some changes. There's probably an inevitability about that because of the situation that they were in here and the changes and kind of getting accustomed to that and changing to that. But in the round, I thought they managed the second half pretty well. I thought from 45 to 60, it was that same approach of wanting to be on the front foot. Probably didn't create as much, but I don't think QPR did either. But then from 60 minutes onwards, it was a very deliberate, I felt, decision just to drop the shape a little bit back, to play transitionally and to probably try and manage it. And there was one towards the end where Kovacevic has saved one from Ilias Chair after Shane Duffy gave the ball away. But I don't really remember too many clear-cut opportunities. There was a Frey header, but then Norwich had some of their own. Jacob Wright had a header that was saved by Nardi. Jurasek, who came on and definitely got more out of him in terms of his application and his willingness to run. That was excellent. There was one moment where down the side where Norrington Davis got kind of round him and he recovered really well to block the cross. That's the sort of intent and energy that I think Philippe Clement was talking about when he spoke and yesterday, but also in the week after that double change. So look, this is, and I think it's difficult to underestimate, particularly the first half, so vastly improved from where Norwich City have been, and that's hugely positive because, as I said, they've gone from a side who were underperforming, who looked absolutely short of confidence, particularly here. And look, it wasn't perfect, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend it was. The goal they conceded was soft. There were some moments where I think Philippe Clement would want them to have a little bit more control. There was also times where their distances weren't quite right between the lines. And, of course, you have to factor in inevitably QPR's week where they've had 2 wins, and I think they were playing Blackburn on Wednesday, didn't get back till 4:30 on Thursday morning, and then basically went to bed and got straight back on the coach to come up to Carrow Road. And I was a little bit surprised they only made one change, with that being their goalkeeper. But let's be honest, teams that have played like that have too often this season come away from this place with victories or draws or only one draw, but they've come away from this place with victories. And so I wouldn't underestimate the psychological aspect of today, not just for those fans on the pitch, but also for the supporters and for everybody. Just an injection of positivity. It's felt like everything really since probably week 2, 3, maybe since that Blackburn win, has just been sewage really around this football club. It's been bleak. It's been miserable. It's felt like it was in a death spiral. And look, one win, as I've said a few times, does not solve anything. Norwich City are still 23rd in the Championship. There's still 4 points from safety. There's still work to be done here. And this is all only relevant and significant if it is the start rather than the end of what they're going to do. They're going to go, they've got some difficult games coming up. Watford next weekend. Can they go and implement that style of play with the intensity, with the energy that they display? Can they go and do it at Vicarage Road? Then can they take it to Bramall Lane and do it again? Southampton come here. They're in excellent form. Can they match them as well? So there are lots more hurdles to jump over. There will be dips, there will be falls, but I think what we've seen today has to be the bar of their performances and of their capabilities, because this is a very capable group. This is a team with individuals that are better, I believe, than what they have shown this year. And Philippe Clement deserves immense credit for what he's done this week to lift this group of players. And of course, I think we always talk about the kind of managerial bounce aspect. But if any club needed a bounce, it was this one after the turgid start of the season. So we will take it. And as I said right at the beginning, it has been nice to stand before you and talk about a victory and talk about some really nice patterns of play and a really good Norwich City performance. And I think everyone inside Carrow Road today, and me and everyone else will, we'll be moving up and walking home and up the hill in our case. With a spring in our step, with a bit more energy, with a bit more optimism. And that's what this week has been about. 4 points is a good return for where Norwich City are at this moment in time. If they can maintain this level, they'll be okay. And that is the key point now, because with performances, I've always said this, I genuinely believe with performances comes results. And I think we've seen over the last 4 days, 2 performances that we can feel very happy about from a Norwich City perspective compared to maybe what went before it. There we go. I am delighted to to have brought that to you and to actually be smiling and not, summing up another dismal afternoon in this place. Thank you very much for watching. Pinkin.com, the place to go. We are now heading to record what will be a very jolly, hopefully, podcast reflecting on this week's events. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for sticking with me through what's been, 13, 14 games without a win. Let's hope this is the start. Philippe Clement era is up and running for Norwich City. See you soon.